Some goodies came in the mail this week. Bar end mirrors, spark plug wires, but no epoxy resin just yet. Welcome to Hack a Week. Here's the current state of disassembly on the Sabre Cafe conversion. I pulled the wheels off because I ordered new tires, and the new tires are now mounted up, ready to go back on the bike. I bought some Kendas. They're a relatively inexpensive tire. I don't plan on racing this bike or driving it real hard, and they're decent for that. They're just fine for that, and in fact I got those for less than $160 shipped for a pair. So they're going to be okay. The front fork dust seals are finished. They were pretty easy to pull off. It's really just a simple matter of loosening up the triple tree clamps right there, and up at the top, of course, loosening up the clamp-on bars and get those out of the way. Then the whole thing just drops down like this and comes off the bike because there's enough room there with the front wheel off where it just barely bumps into the floor and comes off. And then you can slide the new dust seals in place and press them in, and it's all good. The inner seals looked pretty good. I cleaned up the chrome where there were a few little pits here and there, especially on this one. There was, where am I? Several of them in here that were a little rusty, but looks okay now. Cleaned up just fine. Next up is remounting the coil packs. I don't want them to stay where they were because one on this side was mounted right here where these bosses got ground off, and it sat right about here somewhere, I guess. That's going away. It's not going to be there anymore. I'm going to mount them both up in here. One of them was here, the other one will go right in here. I'm going to move them both forward just a bit because, as it turns out, with this tank, the way I've got it set up, it looks like the fuel petcock isn't going to work out just coming off the side, and it does need to be at the back of this tank because it slants. So I think what I'll do is put two petcocks on this bike, kind of like the old Triumphs had, one for reserve, one for main, and I'll just run two tubes right out the bottom of the tank that go down through here and then exit out here somewhere, and then it'll run forward, and probably right about in this area there will be a little valve, a little petcock that will open and close for main and reserve, one on each side, and of course they will both lead to this feed line right here for the fuel for the carbs. I had to pull those carbs back off, by the way. I got in there and redid the needle seat valves. They were a little sticky. One of them was leaking, causing some overflow, but other than that, those carbs came out pretty alright for sitting as long as they did. Oh, I also replaced the O-ring in the bottom on the float bowl just for good measure because the other one was a little dried up even though it was sealing. So let's get busy now and weld up some brackets in here for those coils. I've decided to leave the coil for the rear two cylinders right where it is, and the wires will just run right where they used to go. I've got some new wires on the way. They're red, and red 7mm silicone wires, so I'll just redo the wires. And the other coil that goes to the front two cylinders, I'd like to mount that right about, probably right about here, and some brackets from there out to the frame on either side, and then the coil wires will run out that way and along the top of here and down to the cylinders in the front. Now, to mount that, I need a couple of brackets welded on there. This is the old bracket that used to go up front that the coil mounted to. So I've already got the 6mm bolts welded to some metal here, so if I just cut this off with some tin shears, I've got some nice chunks of metal that I can use to fab up a couple brackets and weld them right to the frame here after I grind the paint off. Okay, I got this coil set up where I want it. Got a couple of brackets in place. Got a few heat shields here out of some old license plates. So it's time to tack it into place, and then we'll do the finish weld after I get it tacked and satisfied with where it sits. That looks pretty good. It's not too high on the frame. Still got clearance underneath. So now we'll go ahead and finish weld it. There we go. A little bit of grinding to clean up some of that slag. I've got a bit of detail work now on some of these bosses that I cut off way back when in the first episode. Need to get rid of those while I've got everything free and clear. The radiator's all off because I cleaned out behind here and everything. So now I can get at these and grind them down. That takes care of that. Ready? I've got these all ground down and cleaned up. I cleaned them off first with some just soap and water and then just a clean water rinse. That gets rid of the dirt and the organic type stuff that's, you know, water based, because solvent won't take that off. If it's water based, solvent won't touch it, and if it's solvent based, water won't touch it. So you need to do it with both. So I did it with some water first, cleaned it really well after that. Then wipe the whole thing down with some Xylol solvent, pretty universal kind of solvent, not too harsh. And that dries pretty fast. And then I warmed it a little bit with a hair dryer to make sure all of the water was purged out of it. Now I'm going to spray it with a little bit of a primer that's got a bit of zinc in it. A zinc primer is really good, and that'll cover up the rust. And a really simple way on this to mask it off is just to use some cardboard from a cereal box. I'm not after a perfect paint job on this. I really don't care. I'm not going to tear my bike down and paint the whole frame just so I can go look, it's a shiny new frame. It's not going to affect the bike's handling or performance whatsoever. That's not what I'm after. I just want a functional bike. If it looks a little ratty, that's fine with me. It's kind of a rat ride cafe anyway. So I'm going to do this first, let that dry, and then come back with some gloss black and touch up all these spots that I did the grinding on. And when it's all done and it gets a little dirty after the first rain, it'll look great. It will make a bit of difference. Just want to keep a really light coat on that. Don't load it on too heavy. Good rule of thumb when you're painting. First coat should just be nice and light. So we'll do that on all of these bare spots. Let it dry really well. And then we'll come back with the black. Okay, this is dried down pretty good for about an hour now. Put my cardboard masking material back in here and continue. Touch this up now. This is just some rust proofing enamel. There's lots of brands of it out there. Pick the one of your choice and have fun. Same principle applies here. Nice light coat. Don't go too heavy the first one. You can always come back and do more. There we go, all touched up. All the places where there were bosses that have been ground off are touched up with black paint now, and it's all back to black. The coil is nestled into its new location now. Everything is all painted where I welded it up. I rerouted the wire loom. It used to run forward, now it just comes back through here. I put a new piece of wire loom on it, tucked it all in real nice, and there they are. 2 coils ready for new spark plug wires. Okay, a bit of a change in the schedule here, the plans here. I've decided I'm just going to put the stock instrument cluster and headlight assembly back in place because I really want to get this project done by the second week in May. I have a grandnephew. Wow, I'm getting old. Grandnephew that's coming from northern New York down here to Myrtle Beach, just south of here, for Bike Week. And it would be really cool to have this thing all together and go for a ride with him and get the first ride going on, you know, with the GoPro video and all that fun stuff with him here. So I'm really pushing hard to get this bike on the road by like the 6th, preferably sooner, of May. So I've got a lot to do, so I'm really going to be hustling it up. And in this video, I won't get to fiberglassing the tank and seat because I'm expecting the epoxy resin to be here by this weekend. But in a minute, I'm going to show you what I did to the tank. I made a little bit of modification, moved it forward a bit, better riding position and all that. But I'm going to get cracking here and get all this stuff back in place and all of this wired back up and working. All functional again. Boy, that sits up there awful high, but I can always move it down later. At least I've got functional gauges again. Now I just got to get the headlight mounted. That's a bit of a problem because it used to mount right here where the clip-ons are now. Looks like I might need to go with an old school headlight with the brackets mounted on the fork. I've got a couple new items that came in the mail today and yesterday. First of all, the red spark plug wires. It's basically 2 pieces of wire 4 feet long each with a spark plug boot on the end of each end. There we go. 2 of them. Somewhere here. Down, boy. 2 4-footers. Spark plug wires on each end. I need 2 short ones for the back 2 cylinders, and the rest of it hopefully reaches the front. We'll find that out in a little while. And extra boots for attaching to the coil. Don't really need those. The coils have that built onto them. We'll put that down here. Or actually, we can just set all that up here on my gas tank workbench, picnic table, map holder. Yeah, I kind of like this flat top tank. Okay, part 2 of the mail stuff, the mail bag as it were. Bar end mirrors. Found these on eBay and I purposely shop for stuff, you know, from the USA. I don't like to do the overseas things. I don't know. Just a thing with me, whatever. But where did these come from? China. Somebody just buys them up and sells them on eBay. But at any rate, here they are. They're pretty cool bar end mirrors. They're pretty neat. Let's let you have a closer look at these. These are pretty cool. Where are you? There you are. You can see yourself on YouTube probably 3 or 4 times there. Anyway, these go into the bar end and then this expands, this collar is the one that I want on there. See, it's removable for 2 different size bar interiors, interior inside diameters. These are convex, so they'll show a pretty good field of view. Not bad. So anyway, there they are. They were pretty cheap too. I think I got them for less than 25 or 30 bucks. And they'll go 2 ways. You can put them with the mirror poking out of the end of the bar, or you can put it on this top bolt so that it will be pointing up. So we'll try either way, but we'll get those installed. Coil pack here, coil pack here. This one is for the front 2 cylinders. This one is for the back 2 cylinders. Here's my old plug wires. The end has to be salvaged, of course. This end right here is what holds it onto the coil. And I found that if you pull on it a little, off comes the little rubber widget. It's that thing right there. And that's what squeezes on the piece of spark plug wire and holds everything watertight and in place. So we need to salvage those off from these wires. And there we go. So we're going to slide this collar, the screw collar, on first. There's a little plastic seal that stays in there. And then put on our little rubber tire widget. If you have a little bit of silicone dielectric grease or some silicone oil, it helps to let this stuff slide a bit. And just push this all the way back in. And I think we're going to leave maybe about that much, 2 millimeters sticking out. Let's try that for starters. Nicely tucked in and routed accordingly. They're running along here. They both run along the frame line. You can see the wire just a little bit in there. It comes out red. Since everything is going to be trimmed out in red, and the scheme of the bike, by the way, is going to be the Repsol Honda, orange, yellow, black, white. I'm going to use those colors and that for inspiration for the paint job on this thing. Okay, here's everything you need to install the bar end mirrors on this particular style anyway. 6mm Allen will take care of the set screw on the outside. A 5mm Allen tightens it into the bar end itself and expands the clamp. And a number 11 X-Acto blade. Whoa, brand new one. We're going to do some surgery, kind of like that scene in Terminator, you know, where he cuts his cornea out the camera. Whoa! Sort of like that, but not. Okay, got to cut the end out of the bar. Definitely going to keep all my skin intact here. But pretty much just poke in there with the blade and start making a circular cut. Well, I've already got a little problem. The inside of this clip-on bar is not the diameter of the shim that the mirrors came with, so I may need to make my own shim for this side. I'm going to cut open the other grip and see what's going on that side. Got to be the same thing. Well, I'm discovering that these shims are really not the right size for this. And this taper spread out mechanism thing, this expansion joint, is pretty weak, pretty lame. It's a little sticky. It's having a hard time doing its thing. I've made another shim out of some aluminum sheet metal I had. That feels like it might actually work this time. The trick is getting the slug to stay stationary while it pulls into the anchor and expands it, the bolt. And it's not, wasn't wanting to do that last time. So I put some grease on it and lubed everything up pretty good. And this shim is cut in 4 different sections so that it can expand like the original. I guess maybe that might work. I need to back it off and rotate it now to the right position for this to stick up. Okay, well, there we go, hack to shim. With the bar end mirror install, make sure you cut the end of the grip out enough so that the mount can go in there without the grip rubbing against the mount. It needs to stay free of that so you don't end up with some crazy full throttle situation. That wouldn't be any fun, would it? Me. The beast is coming together. Bar and mirrors in place. Let's get back to that seat and tank and talk a bit about that. I told you I changed some things a bit. You might notice that the front of the tank has been shaved away a little. It's a bit shorter now. The reason for that was I moved my riding position forward about 2 inches. Made a big difference in just the way it felt sitting there. So before, the seat was about
here somewhere. So before the seat was about here somewhere, now it's up here against the tank. And the tank has got this bit of a gap now where I just need to put a frog on it to go onto this anchor point right here. I've got to, of course, strengthen up that frog in the front of there, rivet, so that it catches underneath this. That will be a lot stronger than it is now. That's just the basics of the shape I needed on the bottom. That's mostly why that's there. This will all get covered in epoxy and laid up thick with fiberglass. And then we get to put a tail light in of some sort. I was playing around with the license plate bracket. I think I'll probably just mount it right here and stick a tail light in here. Maybe do something recessed. I'm going to reuse the old turn signals too, right in this area. I'll just mount them up right here. The ones that used to be on the back, they're pretty beat up. Just like all of them did, I guess. They like to break. So I can take this bracket though, right here, and it will bolt on right there where the rear cowl used to bolt on, and basically that'll give me a signal light that sits about like that, nice and close and quite functional. Good to have those. People don't see bikes enough as it is. You need to light yourself up like a Christmas tree. So that's the seat tank in its new position. I really like it a lot. Much better feel. A little closer to the front of the bike, and the weight's a little more distributed more toward the front wheel, not so biased to the ass end. Okay, what's next? Well, let's see, what's next? Next would be the fiberglassing this tank and seat. I've got to get started on that, but I need the fiberglass epoxy resin, which will be here probably by the weekend, something like that. So I think I'm going to stop this here. Now, I know everybody's anxious to see that fiberglass go on there. Me too, believe me. I want to get this thing riding in the next couple weeks, so I've got a schedule to keep here. Anyway, I've got a lot to do. Like I said, lights and all that stuff isn't such a big time consumer. That can go pretty fast. It's this tank and seat and all that, and getting fuel lines routed. They're going to drop out the bottom, by the way, in underneath the frame. I'll have two lines that come out, and then they go off to the side. One will be reserve, one will be the main. I'll put the main with a tube about that high in there, and of course the reserve down at the bottom. And mount two fuel valves over on the other side, just some manual ones I found. One for main up here, one for reserve back here. They're just on-off valves. So that'll look kind of cool. We'll have two valves, kind of like Triumphs used to have, only they had them on both sides. But anyway, I guess that's it. It's time to stop for now. And until next time. Electric. You know, I might have all kinds of mad skills with the fiberglass and the electronics and tinkering and mechanical stuff, but I still make mistakes. I put the forks on backwards.